This has been a long time for every week. Most weeks that it's felt okay. There are some weeks that I'm like, oh, I'm really tired.
Yeah.
But we're like almost done at this point.
How many more weeks do you have left? You're going through like March, yeah?
Yeah, I think we're going through mid-March. This has been a long time for every week.
Oh, I have to turn this off. Okay.
I know, I had to do that too. Also, there's a way. I don't know how. Maybe not. I thought there was a way to see the chat from Zoom or from Zoom, but I don't think so. So I'm just gonna split screen it as per usual.
I got it over here too.
But I think we have, I'm gonna post a picture since I barely posted about anything all day today.
Okay, I'm gonna be like less nervous if nobody's watching.
Okay, good.
So great.
I'm curious. I haven't done a Saturday one yet. We did Friday. I know we did Sunday. So I'm curious to see, I don't know, if people are
I have no idea what other people's lives are like. Like, what do normal people do on a Saturday afternoon?
Exactly. I haven't gone like anywhere ever, so I'm like, of course everyone's home, just like bored, right? But like, I don't know, maybe I'm way off on that.
I assume everyone is always glued to their phones watching. So
yeah,
we'll see. Of course, everybody should be here.
We'll see. And if not, that's fine. We'll catch it later. It's actually, I don't know. I don't mind. I enjoy if people are live, but it's really cool when you see people rewatching them or like catching up to them weeks later.
And they doing, yeah.
And they always message me with like some sense of like shame or guilt. Like, I know I'm a few weeks behind. And I'm like, this isn't a class. Like, you know what I mean? Every week. Like, I'm glad you're watching it when you're watching it. But it's always really funny. They're like, I'm gonna catch up. I'm like, you don't have to. It's okay.
I've just been watching them like randomly, and then I'll find myself and like want to comment and be like, oh, this isn't live. That's not. Yeah, I'll just quietly lurk. That's my go-to move. It's just quietly lurking.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
So Erin, why don't we? Two people are watching. I don't know if that's us. I say I'm gonna figure it out every single week. Spoiler alert, I'm probably never going to figure out if it counts us as watching it. So if you get annoyed every time I say that, sorry, I'm gonna keep saying it.
We still don't know. So.
Yeah, that's whatever. That's how I am. That's the kind of person I am. So I hope
you have like good intentions. That's what matters, really.
In the moment, I'm like, oh yes, I'm totally going to figure that out, and then I don't think about it for another second until the next time we go live, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So
did it really matter anyways? Nah.
Yeah, it's okay. But let's hop in and get started for folks. If those folks are watching live, hi, thanks for being here. And if not, thanks for everyone. Thanks for checking in later and checking us out. If this is the first self-care collaborative video you've watched, like, welcome. I just know this is going to be a good one. I'm super excited for it. But I'm also super excited for all of them. So that probably doesn't mean much anymore when people hear me say that. But welcome. Thanks for checking us out. There's a bunch more. If our counting is correct, there's 14 more videos that should be saved on my channel for you to go check out. I don't know, whenever you want, whenever you need to. And if you're coming back, thanks for coming back and checking us out. We are on week 15, which feels like a lot of weeks.
A lot
of weeks. It's mid-February. I didn't choose, confession, I didn't choose a winner yet for the end of January, but I made their prize. So they're going to have a coffee cake scented candle that's like cinnamony and it's really good. So after this, I'm going to do that. I'm going to hold myself to after this, choosing a winner. And then like next week, basically 2 weeks, we'll have another winner that I decided is going to get a skein of my yarn or sock set, maybe something like that. And then the next winner, it's going to be a short one because we only have 2 videos, I think, in March, is going to be the grand prize. And it's going to be super awesome. And it's going to be a little package of stuff for my shop, gift card, maybe a charm, maybe a candle, who knows? It's going to be really good. So if you're watching these videos and posting about it on Instagram, make sure you're using the hashtag self-care collaborative 2020. Yes, I know it's 2021, but we started in 2020 and whatever, that's just what it is. Definitely use the hashtag, tag me so I can see what you're doing and make sure that you're entered to win some of those prizes. I think that's all the housekeeping stuff. I'm super excited to introduce or let you introduce, I guess, yourself, Erin. For folks who might not know about you, I don't know if they're like living under a rock or hate yarn or fiber or beautiful things. But we have Erin today with us, the dyer behind Coast to Coast Yarn Co. Go ahead, introduce yourself, Erin. Tell us who you are, where the people can find you. I don't know, all the good stuff.
I'm Erin. I am Coast to Coast Yarn Co., as you said. I am on Instagram at Coast to Coast Yarn Co. That's pretty much where you can find me. I'm not doing any other fun things like podcasts or anything, just Instagram. Yeah, I dye yarn out of my house here. It's just me. I'm a solo operation, sometimes doing a little spinning fiber. That's about it for that. But I am a knitter. I also dabble in sewing and spinning and things and whatever I feel like it. That's about it.
Cool. I love how you said I am Coast to Coast Yarn Co. and not like I'm the person behind, because like, yes, quite literally we are that our business is. And I'm definitely, I don't know if that was intentional for you to say, but I'm definitely.
I feel like I should say like Coast to Coast Yarn Co. is me because I'm more than just Coast to Coast.
Fair.
It is. Like I am Coast to Coast.
Cool. So tell us, I mean, you do a lot, like you're saying. Obviously, dyeing yarn is how I found you, but I enjoy seeing little bits of what you're knitting, what you're spinning, what you're sewing through your Instagram. So I guess tell us a little bit about your journey as a maker and where you started, where you are now.
So I feel like so many people in our community started as kids. We're like, I was taught as a child, but I didn't start knitting until I was like 2016, 5 years ago, I think. I'm not even sure entirely how I started. I think I was just like, this looks cool, I'll do it. I knew like one person who knit and they were like, oh, I'll like show you how to do a purl stitch. And I was like, yeah, I'll figure it out. Like, I'm good. I'll just do it. But I started knitting and kind of just like that has all snowballed to where I am now. But like as a kid, I have always felt like somewhat creative, but my mom is an artist and she's an amazing artist. And so it was always kind of like, I'm not like talented in the way that she is, because she's a watercolor artist and she does like really intricate like paper mosaics now, which is amazing, but completely not my like what I can do. And so I always never really felt like I could also call myself an artist. And like I dabbled in photography and stuff in high school and always liked that, but didn't really find my niche until I found yarn. And I was like, oh, this catches on, like, oh, this is actually really cool. I feel like I can actually creatively express myself with this. So that was a really cool discovery. And I don't think it necessarily clicked right away. It was just kind of like slowly like started knitting and like crocheting and would like crochet a hat and decided I wanted to learn to make socks. So like socks are one of the first things that I knit, and I didn't realize I should be scared of them. So when I learned to knit, my husband and I, we were living in Maine and we were innkeepers. And so I would be knitting while I would wait to check in guests, and they would ask me questions about it. And I'd be like, I literally like barely know what I'm doing. And they're like, you're making a sock. And I was like, no, I have no idea what is happening. They're like, why didn't you just start with like a scarf? I was like, well, I made one scarf. And now I'm like, what's the problem? Which is so funny to me now, like seeing other people who I think are amazing and then realizing, like hearing them talk about having never knit a sock. And you're like, was I supposed to be scared of that? Like, you do so many things I'm scared of. Like, how do you? I just think that's so funny to see what different people are scared of doing, because all of it is, it's all really similar in knitting, but then everyone has their own niches and things. But
yeah.
I'm not a lace knitter. Like, I can, but I like color work. That's
okay.
Yeah.
I feel similarly there. Like, I do lace, but I'm much more excited and drawn to like color work than I am, because then you get to play with different colors and put things together. But it's so funny too what you're saying, that like when you don't know something is supposed to be scary, like whatever. I know that happens a lot. It's really fun when I teach. We have like a knitting group through my work, like through the counseling center, and so we'll cycle through our new like therapist interns and postdocs, and sometimes I'll teach them to knit. And we have one this year, and it was a 6-week class, like an hour a week for 6 weeks. And they made this little scarf, knit, purl, ribbing. Like, that's pretty much it. She comes back. She's like, Bree, I'm on my 4th hat. So far, I've done cabling. I've done bobbles. I know the cable cast on. I'm learning brioche. I was like, I don't want to tell her that all the things she's doing are like,
I love it.
things, because I want her just to keep going. But it's going to be really funny when she figures it out one day that like her first project should not have been a cable hat in the round. I'm going to be like, that's so awesome. So that's really fun.
You just skip like all the intermediate levels and just like go for it. But that's the thing, is like, if you can follow instructions like one thing at a time, you can make anything. Like, you can pretty much, there's not a limit if you've never done something before.
Nope.
Totally can.
Especially with like YouTube and tutorials, you can literally learn anything. Like, there's no need to be scared. It's interesting though. I mean, I hear from you that like that artistic nature is something that is maybe in your, I don't know, this is how it works, but like genetics, or it runs in the family, or how you were sort of raised, and you played around with some different mediums and landed on knitting. How did you get into dyeing? Like, what did that process look like for you?
So I had only been knitting for a couple years. So yeah, like I had been knitting for like a year or two maybe, and we moved to a new city, and I like don't even, I think probably I just discovered on Instagram dyers, like just slowly getting more and more into the knitting scene and just down the rabbit hole. And realizing how cool indie dyed yarn was and how much I could not afford it at all, which I think I've definitely heard other people say, which is so funny because it was not a cheap hobby to get into, but here we are. In the end, it's cheaper now, but yeah, it was, it's like, I want to do that myself. I can probably do that. I'm gonna try it. And it was just so fun. It's definitely been frustrating and harder than I thought it was gonna be, but still amazing. Just like when things don't dye the way you think they are supposed to, especially when you're starting on a budget, can be really frustrating. You're like, well, that was all the yarn I had.
Yeah.
But yeah, I honestly, when I started dyeing, I think, like, looking back now, I knew so little about fiber arts, just in general, like about knitting, about wool, about anything. I was just kind of like dove in. Really wouldn't have been able to answer questions if people had questions for me. But you got to start somewhere, you know?
Did you ever think when you started dyeing that you would be where you are today? Because you're full time now, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of recent still. I don't know if
it's been about 6 months already, which is wild. But yeah, I took it full time in June, I think, which has been an amazing transition. I'm so grateful that I was able to do that. It's a very weird transition too, like going from trying to build up a business alongside a full-time job and then having all your time to devote to that suddenly, when like you were using all your free time before. Now where's your free time? Like when I have free time, it still feels like I should be doing the things that I used to be doing during my free time. But yeah, I don't know, like I'm not sure where I saw myself going. You know, I start things, then you have like lofty dreams, but I don't really have goals as a person. So it wasn't necessarily like I'm going to work towards building a yarn empire. It was just kind of like I'm gonna dye things and like I hope people like them. And it seems like enough people like them now that we can feed ourselves, which is great.
Eating is always good.
I love it.
Interesting too. I think for most people here, but also as like an earlier dyer, I'm like, oh yes, all of your time is going to your job. And then when you're not at your job, it's going to your other job. And so like saying like, yeah, Saturday, it's my dye day. It's like one of my big dye days when I get a lot done. And so I'm curious to hear, I guess, along the lines of like balancing that transition and having maybe free time now or not feeling like you can have free time. And I wonder how that lines up with what self-care looks like for you and like maybe how that's changed.
So one of the biggest struggles for me has been figuring out my new schedule because I still don't have a solid set schedule. So my husband and I both had similar schedules. He was in school before, and so he was kind of gone all the time and working alongside, and then he graduated with his master's in May of this year, very anticlimactically at the middle of the pandemic. So that was sad. But so then he suddenly has more of his free time. He switched jobs, so he's bartending now. So his hours shifted. And my hours then just became like, I can make them whatever I want. And before I had been a baker, so my hours were predominantly morning hours. And I really liked that, especially with trying to balance two things. So like if I start really early, I'm done early in the day and I have so much afternoon and evening time to work on dyeing.
Yeah.
So I think that having that specific job really helped me be able to build up yarn and then transition to that.
Yeah.
But now I still like working in the morning, but I'm trying to like actually be able to see Landon because his schedule is so shifted that he sleeps in really late and goes to work really late. Like if he comes home at 1 o'clock, like I don't want to already be in bed. That's just kind of sad. And yeah. So I'm still not entirely sure what my ideal schedule is. And I think that is one of the harder things for me with self-care. Like, I don't feel like I'm great at self-care, so it's kind of funny for me to be on here. But it's just, I'm really good at like half working and just kind of wasting all my time. So really, I'm not a great example for how to make this transition. But I do end up starting working a lot later in like the midday or mid-afternoon, which then I also feel like somewhat guilty about because I'm so used to starting working earlier in the day, even though like I know I end up working later, but it's still just a weird thing that, yeah, if I were better, I would actually decide on a schedule, but I have not.
No, I don't know. It's always funny when I hear people be like, I'm not good at self-care. And I'm like, I don't know what being good at self-care looks like. I don't.
To me, it's like I know things that I could do to take care of myself better, and then I don't do them. Yeah.
Yes. And that sounds like I don't know, like a human.
Yeah.
Like,
If
yeah.
we have things that we felt like we could be better at, like where are we going? Like, what do you have to work towards?
Exactly. I was gonna say, if you get to the point, or at least for me, I think I feel that way with most things in my life, with yarn dyeing, with knitting, with my job, with taking care of myself, that if I get to the point where I feel like, oh, good, I'm done, or like I
Yeah.
can take that off, then I'm like, I'm probably missing something. Like that's not, I don't know. I don't think self-care is I guess there are things you can do, like, oh yes, I will do this and check it off of my list and say I took care of myself, but it feels
Or like setting up habits, I guess. Just making better habits. And then it comes more naturally.
it feels like if the value is there and like I don't know what you want to be about is solid, like maybe my self-care is making time to spend with my husband.
Yeah.
And it's important to me. Well, then like the things you do and the way you get there, specifically day to day, feel like, well, I don't know, you'll figure it out. It'll fall into place. If you know what that foundation is. And I don't know, maybe that's a different way of thinking about self-care, or like not what most people expect.
I like it. Like, I think it can be both things,
Yeah.
It can be a series of small goals too. Like you can have something that you worked like something that you want to be better at, but it can also be like the process of getting better at it.
Yeah. That's funny. I feel like most of these conversations at one point or another has gotten to the point of like process versus product.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's something that we're more aware of as makers, because I know talking to other people in my life, like, I don't know, if I talk to my family about like the process of doing something, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, just do the thing so then you have a sweater. Like, that's it. And I'm like, no, that's like not all it's about though.
Like most things that people do don't take that long, so they don't necessarily appreciate the process. So that's why makers is just like, oh, this is a months long project. Like it's the process for sure. I feel like a lot of my self-care though ends up being more product. Like what I need sometimes is to just like make something or do something cool or learn something interesting. And it is definitely a lot more about just like, I want to achieve something so I feel accomplished and feel like excited about something. And then I can like go do other things. But like, I need one little nugget of just like, I did this and that was cool.
I feel that too, even like I tend to be more of a monogamous maker, and I think it's partly that, like,
Mm-hmm.
enjoy the process. And if it feels like I'm not making any progress or like I'm not accomplishing anything, then it's, I don't know, it's discouraging or like hard to feel motivated. Do you have a sense of like what, like things in your mind that stand out that you're like, yeah, this is what I turn to when I want to feel accomplished or when I want to learn something new? This is how I like make that decision, or
Mm-hmm. Lately it's been like spinning, learning to sew was that. We like within just the last week pulled our piano out of where it was like hidden. And so now that's in our living room. And that has been really fun to just like sit down and play because I'm not a piano player, but like that's something that has been fun and like totally just for me because I'm not working towards anything with that necessarily. And so it's just kind of like, I can play this song better than I could yesterday. So that's cool. But yeah, definitely just like the learning different things. Mostly not knitting at this point because knitting for me has kind of transformed this year. Like before I was a lot more of an I want to learn something new with every single project that I make person. And if I wasn't advancing my knitting skills, it was kind of just like, it's a waste of time. But ever since the pandemic started, I just had lost like any creative motivation, and just I've had the same like big projects just sitting halfway done. And like I've knit a couple, like a pair of socks, and that's like the only thing I can finish right now. I still haven't really been able to get back into the big projects. But it's, yeah, so like knitting for me now is a lot more just like I want to just like sit and work on something and not really have to pay attention to it, versus the like I want to learn something new, which is interesting because I still want to learn new things with knitting, but like I'm at the point where I just like want to make what I know I can make. But like other things, I'm like, oh, I want to like learn a new sewing project. Like I don't really know how to do anything with that. Or like I want to learn a new song.
Makes sense. I mean, I hear you saying like, oh, since the beginning of the pandemic, but do you have a sense of like what that might be about, or like where that switch, why that switch happened for you?
I think I was getting a little burned out with my job. And when the pandemic hit, it changed things there to a point that I was really frustrated and stressed. Um, so that just kind of like I didn't have the creative capacity to do other things. And it's kind of carried over just because of like general worldly anxiety then after that. So it's definitely gotten better. But for those first few months, I just couldn't. Like I would sit next to my knitting, be like, I really want to work on it, but I can't. But yeah, I've definitely like switching to full-time dyeing was really good timing for me. And I'm really glad that it worked out because my entire mentality has shifted and I'm just so much happier as a person. Only having one job is amazing. Yeah, I feel like I also maybe don't work as much as a lot of dyers that I see. Like I see a lot of dyers in our community working really, really hard all the time, and I don't. Like I definitely try and make sure that I have time for myself, or like ideally want to make sure that I have time for myself. Whether I actually do that or not is a different thing. But again, it's the intention, of actually like that's what I want to do. But which is such a difference from when I was working full time too, because now I actually have that time that I can have to myself. So I think it's allowed me to theoretically knit more, but I haven't actually knit a whole lot. I feel like I haven't finished very many things this year in general.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense too. I think motivation and energy just feels lower. Like anxiety is high, we're worried about a lot, we're stressed, and we're not going anywhere. Like, and that, I don't know, that like takes a literal physiological toll on our brains. So like having the capacity to like think and do something new when you don't have to, when you could just do something that's like, I could just knit this sock and I don't have to think too much about that. I don't know, it sounds appealing. I think you're not alone in that. It's interesting though to hear, do you feel like that lower like motivation to try new things, or like, I don't know, be a little creatively outside of the box or learn something new, traveled into your dyeing world, or does that feel different for some reason?
Maybe that's where I'm using it. That might be where I'm using it. Because I feel like I've been having a lot of fun, like especially with my latest collection, like just like taking my time and then developing the colorways and like this is the longest I've ever taken to develop colorways like this. And it's really nice. Like I've been working on it for probably a month, and I have like 8 colorways that I'm done with, and I still have no idea when I'm actually releasing the collection. Like, and it is really actually kind of nice to do it like that, because I feel like I think the last collection I did, I kind of just like picked a date. It's like, I'm going to do it, have it done by this date. Like I knocked out a bunch of colorways that like, I love the collection, but it was just very much like boom, 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 done, putting it out there, ta-da. But this one is, I'm definitely approaching it differently and just a lot more like intentionally. But I think that's also because this collection is inspired by other people's submissions. So it's my Comfort Zones collection. Yeah. And I feel somewhat responsible to like really do people's ideas justice. You know, like it's different to dye something that you really like and put it out there versus dye something you really like and look at their inspiration photo that they sent and be like, I don't think that this is what they wanted.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing to like have, you want one person's approval specifically.
Yeah, that sounds scary. It's funny that I'm like hearing what you're saying, and I'm like, yes, I was just talking to another dyer maybe last week and was like, I don't want, like, I'm not as excited to just dye any of my like dyed to order colorways. Mm-hmm. Way more clubs than I've ever done, and like kits, which used to like stress me out because it was something new all the time. Mm-hmm. But now I'm like finding it so enjoyable to like, let's make a new color, let's do something different. But the having that appeal to one person sounds like a lot of pressure. I don't know. I've only done that a few times, and it was like friends. Yeah. So okay if we went back and forth and like change things, but that's
the way I'm doing it. I'm giving myself some space because I picked a bunch of submissions that I like theoretically that I would want to dye from, and I'm not emailing people till I like have the color. So I'm not like, I'm working on your color. It's like as soon as I have it done, then I'll let them know. But like I might not even use all of the ones that I selected. So I'm not gonna put that pressure on myself.
Yeah.
Like I'll just do it secretly.
Hey,
I like it.
That sounds like a good idea. Especially too, I don't know. I know sometimes when people who don't dye yarn, I guess it's like this with any art or any creative process, that if you don't do it and you ask for something specific, I don't know, it can be really frustrating when someone's like, can you do it like this? And I'm like, no, that's like not how it works. Like I can't. And they're like, why? And I'm like, well, if I do it like that, it'll look like this, and that's not what you're saying. And it's like, but can't you just do it like that? And I know my sister's a graphic designer, and I do that to her all the time. And I'm like, it's probably so annoying. So doing it behind the scenes might be best for everyone involved.
Right.
A good idea. It also, I guess, makes me curious too, because I hear this part of you that's saying, I'm enjoying like taking my time, figuring out my schedule and what this looks like for me. And I noticed that I'm maybe not working as much as like other indie dyers work. Mm-hmm. At least my perception is that when you're your own boss and you're running your own business, it's hard to like set boundaries because you're like, well, I do have another hour. I can just do a little bit more, which feels like really different from like if you're working a job where someone else is your boss and paying you for this many hours, and it's like, okay, I'm done. That's the end of my day. And so it sounds like you're doing a good job of not succumbing to that or like balancing that. And I'm curious to hear like how you're doing that, what it is.
I'm kind of the opposite because I'm a procrastinator. So if I set a date for my pre-order, that like I'm 4 to 6 weeks on this one, and I'm working away and realize that like I have some flexible time, I have a really, really hard time then sticking to the schedule that I made that put me getting done with it early. So that's where I get into my like half working stuff. We're like, well, like I said I was going to dye all of these today, but I don't need to have them done yet. So, but like maybe I should. And so then I just sit there scrolling on Instagram instead of like, oh, well, I'll like go do something that I actually want to do that's not dyeing versus than like actually just going to dye it. So that's definitely where I need to like work on my priorities of like, I want to prioritize doing something for myself for fun and then go like finish the work or just finish the work, even though that's not in my nature.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm like so not a procrastinator, and Michael, my partner, is like definition, his face in like Webster's dictionary, like it is him. And I'm like, how do you do that? Like I get anxious for him, and he's like, it's fine, I'll get it done. I'm like, oh my gosh. But it's funny to hear like where it sounds like then you kind of get stuck. Like I'm not really doing something I want to be doing to take care of myself, and I'm not getting this stuff done. But it's interesting that you don't do the thing that I think most dyers would do, which is like, oh, I could get this done early and either start my next pre-order or get more dyed up and then do like an in-stock. And like, I don't know, that seems, I know maybe you're not at your ideal or like where you want to be, but the fact that you're able to not do the thing that I think most people feel pressured to do, that's like, oh, I have an extra day, let me crank out all this extra yarn, feels like impressive to me in some way.
I feel like, so I don't know what my like business growth goals are necessarily, and I'm at a point which like feels really good right now that I like want to maintain it, but I don't know, I don't want to get to the point where I'm overworked. Like I want to stay at a level that I can maintain and like not feel like I'm drowning under yarn, because what's the point of being your own boss if you can't enjoy time for yourself? But because so right now we're potentially looking at like moving in the relatively near future. So my husband graduated with a degree in upright bass, so he's looking at auditioning for symphonies whenever they actually open up. So we'll be moving who knows where, who knows when, whenever he can get a gig, like we're gonna go. So to grow out of my basement or like hire someone is kind of like it's not gonna happen now. So I just maintain where I am right now. I don't know how much I want to grow anyways. Like, do I want to run a space if we move? Do I want employees? I don't know. At this point, it just kind of is going to be wherever we end up. The plan has always been for us to move wherever he gets a job. So like, this is totally foreseen. It's not like I started this business and was like, "Ma, you're ruining my business growth." Like it's totally good where we are, but it also puts us in this strange state of limbo. Like we both just kind of feel like we're just like waiting, which I don't love. Like I want to be able to like appreciate where we are now, like what we're doing, like even in the middle of a pandemic, like I can still enjoy like my day-to-day life, but it definitely is weird to like look towards the future because like in general, I'm not a goals person, but I'm like a short term, like I need a to-do list, but my 5-year plan is like, there is not one. But yeah, it definitely helps to like at least have an idea. So right now it's just kind of like, I feel like I can maintain where I am. And then maybe that's why I'm not feeling like I need to like crank out as much as possible because I'm not trying to like grow.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to grow, but like.
It sounds like there's no need to force growth at the expense of your sanity and like working a million hours or like, I don't know, just situationally, like I'm going to force growth to this point where like I'm going to be moving who knows where, who knows when. I imagine like during the pandemic, that's even more difficult because who knows when symphonies and what symphonies are gonna look like. And
it was already pretty up in the air before pandemic. Like he's always said that like it could take like 5 years to get a gig. Like who knows how long it's going to take. Like you can get one right away, you can get one in years, and now it's just like thrown even more of a who knows aspect into it. Who knows? But like both of us are pretty go with the flow people. Like we'll end up where we end up, and it's going to be fine when it happens. It's going to be great.
Yeah,
but we don't know.
I guess I'm curious too, because you said you were in Maine not too long ago, and now you're in Kansas. And I don't know, are y'all used to moving, or is that something you're like, whatever, that's fine? Or do you want to be settled in a specific place? Or
so we've moved a few times. This is we've lived in our house now 3 years almost, and that's the longest we've lived anywhere together. So like we lived in Maine for 2 years, moved to Kansas City for a year, moved to central Kansas, and we've been here for a couple of years. I forget what your question was.
Same. Maybe is there, I guess I'm just curious because you had mentioned like moved a few times. Is there somewhere you're like hoping to land, or
I think
travelers?
We're pretty open to wherever. Like my family lives in Oregon, that's where I grew up. His family lives here, so we're really close to his parents right now, which is really great. But we'll probably be far away from everyone we know again soon. We're very open. It kind of just depends like where he can get a job. Like he'll apply wherever and we'll probably go, and it doesn't really matter. I think I'm really good at appreciating wherever we are. Like we live in small town Kansas right now, and that's fine with me. Like Landon less so because it's the town he grew up in. But like I like it. I'm fine. Like I can appreciate things about it. I can not appreciate other things about it, but like in general, like it's great. Sure. And I think that wherever we go will be fun and interesting, and then will probably be cool local places that we can appreciate, and it's going to be great. So I don't think either of us have even tried to like make an ideal situation because it's so up in the air. Like don't want to be disappointed if your general goal doesn't work out, especially with symphonies because they're all over the country, and like you can get a job at one, and like if you set your heart on one specific state or area you want to live in, like that's not necessarily going to happen.
It's nice though too, I imagine, like that your business, like you are your own boss, you have your own business. I imagine there's a little bit of security there that like you can literally do it from anywhere. It's an online business. I don't know, I imagine you could be in Alaska and like do fine. And
one of the motivations for me to take it full time was like before Landon started auditioning, that I would have this like I don't have to apply for jobs if we move, which is amazing.
Did you know, I guess I know you had talked about that it was like really good timing with being a little bit frustrated with your job during pandemic and then making the transition. Were you like planning to go full time with Yarn, or is that just sort of what happened? Would it have happened?
I feel like in the first few months of this year, I had been like looking at it as potential, looking at the numbers and being like, well, like if I grow this much next month, then it seems like I could grow more. And if I then actually like have time, then it could be worth it. So like I was definitely eyeing it as a thing that like I could maybe do that. Like maybe I can pull it off. Like I don't know, but I want to try. So I was definitely looking at it as an option, and it was like as soon as it became like somewhat of an option, then it was like that's what I want to do. Like as soon as it seemed like it was slightly possible, it's like, oh yep, that's what I want to do. I want to do that before we move so that I can move my business, just have that, and it doesn't like I don't have to uproot that part of my life. Like whenever we move and you start 2 new jobs, like we have to look for 2 jobs, look for the place to live, and I hate that. I'm tired of it. So like really just having this that this is me. I can take it wherever I want. It's great.
Yeah. It's fun too, because I mean, when you think about like what we're talking about, we're not saying it explicitly, but it feels like a part of what we're talking about is like how your job can be part of your self-care and taking care of yourself, and whether that's like making decisions to be in one job or another, or like how you set up your job and your work and like your values within the work that you do. And it sounds like all of that, I don't know, it's really cool to hear a dyer. I was just having a conversation with a friend last week that I was like, yes, money is nice and like eating is nice, but like, I don't know, it's so cool to see people liking your stuff and using your stuff and like you become part of their story. And I was like, if I never grow more than I am now, or like a little more, and like transition work, like I don't need to be the top dyer. Like this is part of taking care of myself, is I get to do something fun and not maybe make money, but at least not like lose money on it. So it sounds like that's a big.
Be successful and not the best. Like you don't be the most successful. Like you can be perfectly successful, perfectly happy, and not be the most popular, the busiest.
Yeah.
Whatever fits into each of our lives.
It's funny too, because I don't know, the way knitters or people talk about yarn dyers, it feels like there's this expectation that like if you're the best yarn dyer, you will be able to put out all the yarn and like everyone will have your yarn. And I'm like, it's so funny because it doesn't feel that way when we think about other types of art. Like,
yeah,
you know, painters paint and then they have so many paintings. Like they're not like painting paintings for every single person who wants a painting in their house always. And like their painting style is not everyone's style, and they can still be an amazing artist. So it's a funny thing sometimes to get in the world of like how people measure success in fiber arts and like dyeing yarn. And I don't know, it's cool. It feels refreshing to hear someone be like, yeah, that's not my goal. Like I don't need to work toward that. If it happens and like it's a side effect as I'm living the rest of my life, like, okay, but I'm not gonna sacrifice other parts of my life to make that happen.
Yeah, like I'm not hustling. I'm just walking along. Natural growth is what I need. We'll see. Like maybe once we move, I'll have more specific goals of how I would like to expand. Because then I would actually have something to like dream off of. I need like a roots for my dreams. Yeah. But right now there's no roots. We're just floating. We'll see.
So I guess then, Erin, like thinking about all of this, thinking about some of the things we're talking about, if you've seen some of the other videos, you know that my favorite part of this self-care collaborative is the homework challenge, call to action, whatever you want to call it. I still don't have a solid name for it. That the makers I interview come up with every week. And I'm curious if there's something that you have thought about already, if you have a homework idea in mind, if you've been a procrastinator, maybe you didn't think about it until right before this or even while we've been talking, but I'm curious to hear where your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so mine that I thought of right before we hopped on here was, it's something that I need to do too, which is the picking just like something that invigorates you, something that gets you excited to like do things again, whether it's like reading a book, making something specific, like learning something new, just doing that, and maybe not even necessarily putting it at the end of your to-do list, like just put it at the beginning of your to-do list. So for me, it's just like going to be doing something before I do all the other things that I'm supposed to be doing. because then I'll be excited about it, and then that will also translate into the rest of my life. Yeah, so pretty much just pick something. Maybe it was something that you like used to do as a kid. Like that's what piano is for me, honestly. Like I played piano as a kid, and now I'm just like, I want to plunk on the piano again.
I love this because I think so much of what's happening, we touch on this a little, but so much of what's happening as we come into month 11 or 12 of pandemic is like, okay, I'm tired. I'm just tired. Like we've been sprinting, right? We went into it feels like the world went into this situation thinking it was going to be temporary. So it was like, all right, we can just sprint and push through it. And then it was like every time we came around to the end of the lap, the dude was like, one more lap. And you're like, okay, sure. Just keep sprinting. And like now it's been 11 months. We're still sprinting. And it's like, I don't know. If we had gone into this pandemic knowing it would be a year, I probably would have paced myself differently. Like I probably would have done things differently. And so I love the focus on finding something that energizes you right now. It might be something really different that like you're not doing or you haven't thought about doing. And I love the idea of doing it at the front end, because I think a lot of times what happens, people are like, I'll do it as my reward, right? And then like you either don't get to it, or by the time you get to it, you're really tired, so it's not as enjoyable. And like, I don't know, then you drudge through your whole to-do list or day, like just wanting to have done that thing. And
I do all the time, and then I just don't end up, I can't get myself to start the work that I'm supposed to be doing before I can reward myself with whatever I actually wanted to be doing. So I just do the thing and then do the other things. It sounds so easy, but is it?
No. And I don't know, if it was easy, it probably, I don't know, maybe that's why people tell us. I was going to say maybe it wouldn't be so helpful if it was easy, but I don't know.
It's easy for some people. Who knows?
I also
like
since your bake off, was that in December?
Yeah.
That feels like 8 years ago, and also like yesterday.
Yeah, so it's like, what? Forgot about that already.
So since that, I've been like, I'm gonna bake something every week. Like that's on my list. And then I'm like, I'll do it on Sunday. But then what happens on Sunday is like I dye yarn and clean and do all the things I need to do Saturday, Sunday, and then I'm tired at the end of the night. But like, how amazing would it be to start my week if I baked something Monday morning? Like, granted, I don't like waking up early, but if I was waking up early to make cookies, like,
there you go.
exciting and like very energizing to me. So I really love this challenge, and I think it couldn't come at a better time.
I'm glad.
Do you have any ideas about what you're going to try and do this week or make time for at the front of your day or front of your schedule?
Honestly, I'm probably going to knit, because that's the thing that I want to do at the end of the day, and then I just fall asleep on the couch instead. So I really have hardly knit lately. So that I might actually read a book, which is always on my like theoretical to-do list, and then I've read like one book this year.
That's actually a good thing to think about too, because I'm always like, I'll read when I get in bed, but then by the time I get in bed, I'm later than I wanted to get in bed and I'm tired and I can't really read. But reading in the morning sounds like, I don't know.
I see other people do it. I'm like, oh, that looks nice. I'm gonna continue to scroll on my phone instead.
Right? Even I know like Darian has talked about that. I know I follow Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady, and she does like 30 minutes of knitting in the morning. And I'm like, that sounds so nice. Like just waking up.
It's very attainable.
Which, okay, I really like this challenge because I feel like there have been enough things pushing me toward it. And I'm like, I don't like to wake up earlier. I don't want to do whatever. The list of annoying reasons I tell myself. But if it's to do something exciting, That sounds so much like a better way to start my day than just to wake up and go straight to work. My living room, 10 feet away from where I sleep. So cool. I'm excited about it.
Me too.
Any other last minute, I guess, thoughts or words of wisdom, wonderings that you want to share with us, Erin, before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I got nothing else in me, you know?
Hey, that sounds accurate. That sounds good self-awareness. Do you want to tell the people what sweater you're wearing? Because I know what it is, because I've seen your Instagram, but I
think you have a great version of it too.
I like, didn't think I was about the slub, but like then I see a project like this and I'm like, oh, maybe
So I don't love slub knit alone. I love it knit with fingering weight. So this is fingering weight with slub yarn, and it kind of fills it out and makes it all nubby, which I love, except my husband was like, is it pilling already? So that's where we are with this sweater now. But no, it's my Weekender sweater by Andrea Mowry, and I knit it in my Cove colorway on slub and fingering weight.
I love that. I think that's like, I can't say that. That feels too hard. I was going to say, I think that's like one of my favorite colorways of yours. And then every time you put out a new colorway, I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. Wait a minute. Maybe it's that one. Oh, no, maybe it's this one, especially, I don't know, your comfort zones. It's funny, and Jess said this too, your comfort zones have nailed it every time.
Oh, thank you.
Like, I wasn't expecting that the colorways would have more meaning to me because, like, it's not my story.
Mm-hmm.
They do. Like, when I was reading it, I was like, oh, like, I can relate to that. And then, like, that colorway just became 10 times more meaningful. And I'm like, oh, that's so funny. It's not even my story. Why did
right? It's funny, it feels like the most me collection that I've made so far, and it's literally about everyone except for me.
Sense, because it's like you're like, yes, it's other people's stories, but it's you are the narrator, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you're telling their story.
I love that. Oh, I like that a lot.
It makes sense. Yeah, cool. I'm excited to see. No pressure or anything, Erin, but there are definitely people out here who are excited for this collection to be available.
Me too, but I'm taking my sweet time.
It's good. It's like, that's probably like an intentional thing, like building suspense, like
exactly.
Whatever way you need to justify taking your time.
And if like I hear other people actually plan projects, I don't know what that's about, but I know some people do that. So like really, like it gives you plenty of time to plan out. Knitting's a slow thing. I'm gonna take my time, procrastinate as long as I possibly can.
That's so funny because I am like the farthest thing from planning. Like how people do make nines and things like that. Like even when I buy yarn and I'm like, oh, I want to make a sweater with that. And then it's like on my shelf and a new pattern comes out. I'm like, I don't want to make that anymore. I want to do this thing. But I have to say, in the spirit of trying something new, I've only done it with Advent so far because I'm like, I don't know what to do with my Advents. But I knew with my Advent, I wanted to make a blanket because I was like, I kind of like seeing my first ever Advent, like have my blanket. And with your Advent, I had no idea what I was going to do. Mm-hmm. But I can't separate the, like this needs to be one project and I don't want it to be a blanket because I want people to see it. And so I've been planning, it hasn't happened yet, so we'll see how this plan actually goes, to make a like stripey, I don't think I'm going to fade it. I think I'm just going to do a stripey dress, like a maybe classic raglan, but just keep going until I use all of the colors. And so that's the only plan that I've held on to. I guess it's not that long. I was gonna say since last Christmas, but that's like a month and a half.
I think that's a while to have a plan, you know?
It is. It does. It's longer than I ever planned for anything else, but I'm like, there's something to this planning because once I do it, there's so much suspense built up that I'm like, I'm so excited to cast it on. Like whatever it ends up being, it feels like it doesn't matter at this point because I'm just so excited. There's so much anticipation. So I don't know, maybe you're right. Maybe having the planning time will be helpful for people. Or if they're like me, they'll have all the plans and then they'll see the next colorway and be like, oh, just kidding. I want a sweater in that. And then
I'm getting it all. Hopefully, that's the goal.
That is the goal. That's a good goal.
I still have to figure out what I'm doing with I kept one Advent on DK of my own. And now I just don't know. I have no idea what to do with it because I see people's projects. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll do that. No, maybe I'll do that. I'm tempted to do a blanket, but I've also seen it held with like cream mohair for a sweater, stripes.
You could, although I don't know if I'm encouraging this because I don't know if it was the best idea. I don't know if you've seen my blanket that I'm making and putting it with mohair.
It looks so good.
It is so wonderful. It's fucking bitch to make because there's literally fluff everywhere. Like Michael is complaining more than he usually complains. He like woke up, he was like, I have hair in my mouth, Brianna. I was like, oh, sorry. But
we already have the world's fluffiest cat. So we have hair everywhere anyways.
You won't even notice.
So it's just meant to be. Yes. We can just blame it on the cat and not me.
That's what I would do. And then you keep all your colors together because you can't split those up.
Like I want to do a big project because you have to use all 24 colors. We'll see. What pattern are you using for yours?
The Cozy Comfort Throw, I think it's called. By Molly of a Homespun House. It's new. She put it out this year.
Nice. Super simple. Like the Habitation Throw, I think too. They're both like similar, but maybe in different directions.
I almost went with that, and I didn't want to think about increasing and decreasing. To be honest, I was like, I want something just to knit straight on at night and like not have to think about. And this is knit straight, which you get it.
I'm convinced. Yep. 100% sold.
Yeah. Cool. I'm excited to see what you do. I'm excited to see what people do this week for our challenge. And honestly, like, yes, I'm excited to see people do it and talk about how it goes or like what the outcome is, but I'm also just excited in hearing people's plans of like, what is the thing that invigorates you? Like maybe you don't even get to actually implementing it and doing it, but just taking some time and reflecting on like, what would give me energy right now? Like what would recharge me? And just thinking about it and connecting with it when it feels like, I don't know, maybe we've lost touch with it. Feels like it would be important.
Thinking about like what I want to do makes me really excited to like actually do something.
Exactly. So I'm excited to hear what people do. Like I said at the beginning, if you want to play along and win prizes, like why wouldn't you? I don't know. I guess that the collab is cool because you could just like grow as a person and like that's cool, but also like win stuff. Why not? But if you're watching, if you're doing the things, definitely post on Instagram, use the hashtag self-care collaborative 2020, tag me, tag Erin for this week, Coast to Coast to Yarn Co. It's also funny whenever I type your name, I like have to triple read it because the double T, make sure I have them. But tag both of us because I know that I'm sure we'd both be excited to hear what is bringing you joy and bringing you energy right now. And Erin, I want to say like super, super thanks for you coming on here, spending some time with me on this Saturday evening when I know everyone is like so busy and has so much stuff to do.
Out and about.
But it really was a joy. I don't know. I know we've talked a little bit on Instagram here and there, but it was really nice talking face to face, screen to screen. And
right now.
Yeah. And getting to know you a little bit more. I know other people are going to be really excited about it. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for thinking of me.
Of course. And hopefully this thing continues. It seems like it might next year. So maybe we can hear all about what life looks like by then. Maybe there'll have been a move, maybe not. And just to touch base again and check in sounds like it could be really fun. So thank you. And yeah, thank you. That's all I can say. At the end of these, I'm like so speechless. I'm like, I can't say thank you enough. So thank you.
And thank you for hosting this. I am impressed, honestly, by 15 weeks already. And I've really enjoyed watching all of them so much. So
15 weeks. That's
impressive.
I don't know enough about math. I was gonna be like, if this is my self-care baby, I'm like through the first trimester, right?
I know so much about kids.
Yeah, this feels like the morning sickness is over. We're solid now. We're just on the track. And it's just been really fun. It's fun to just get to know people and hear people's stories. And I couldn't do it without all of you who trusted probably a stranger at that point when I reached out and messaged in some way like, hey, want to do this thing I'm doing? And I don't know, a bunch of people said yes. And I'm still like, wow, why did anyone trust me enough to just say, sure?
All you have to do is ask.
Exactly. You never know. I mean, there are people who are like, no. There weren't as many people who said no as I would have thought. And there were a lot of people who said yes. So
I did.
Yeah, I'm glad we're doing it. I know a lot of people are loving it and getting a lot out of it. And so I'm appreciative. I know other people are appreciative. It's been really fun. And I'm super, super grateful again, Erin. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody who watched. Jess, hi, thanks for coming, watching us live. 3 are watching. I don't know if Mia's here. I'll give Mia her shout out in case she's here and she can't message, can't type in the chat. And if not, if you're watching later, thanks for stopping by and checking us out later. And I hope you all take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Hang in there, and I'll see you.